Hi friends, I'm here today to tell you all a story. Um, I want to warn you guys now, this story has some trigger material for abuse survivors and people from related situations. So if that is a problem for you, you might wanna, yeah, I don't know. It's up to you, ultimately. And I also want to say that any resemblance of characters in the story to yourself or other people, that is entirely unintentional. This story is my story, and while it's not fictional, it's completely true. Um, it better not be about you because it's about me, and yeah. Anyway, I'll stop yammering. Um, So, I hope you enjoy it, or if you're not the sort of person to enjoy a story like this, which would be normal, um, I hope it makes you think, and I hope you appreciate it for what it means to me and what it can potentially mean to the world. So, thank you. Once upon a time, there was a little girl. She grew up on the coast of Lake Erie. She actually lived on the coast of Lake Erie for 10 years of her life, and they are probably the most uneventful 10 years of her life. She grew up in a very safe neighborhood. Everyone in the neighborhood knew everyone. All the kids were friends with everybody, and if there was like a bit of a sour relationship, it still worked out, like eventually, because you were around them all the time. You went to the same school, you went to the same pool, you went to the same parks, you did everything. You shared the same sidewalks, and you'd be out rollerblading, and you might run into one, and yeah, everyone just knew everyone, and it was very closely knit. It was a very closely knit community. But just because these years were uneventful doesn't mean that things didn't happen. Um, Not a lot happened in the little girl's home, but there was sort of an underlying rhythm of life, and that was fear. Something that no kid should have to grow up with, but it was there, and it was real. And some of her strongest memories were formed around times when she would come home to find out that her parents had started yelling again, and that they were fighting in her dad's office. And her older siblings would kind of cover her ears and pack up sack lunches for her younger siblings, and they would all go off to a park and just be like, okay, it's quiet here, like, it's nice, we can pretend that there's nothing happening at home. But the little girl always knew that something was happening. And she couldn't define it. She didn't have the words or the grown up concepts to realize that her parents were having marriage problems. She knew the word divorce. She was terribly frightened that her parents were going to have a divorce. But physical abuse wasn't a term in her mental dictionary, even though it was something she experienced and her siblings experienced as well. She just grew up with it and came to accept it as a way of life. And she thought it was weird if she met other kids that their parents didn't spank them or beat them in other ways. She just thought that wasn't normal at all. um, and she thought those kids were spoiled and yeah, what have you. um, Little did she know. When she was 10, her family moved to Maryland to live with her grandparents on her mother's side. Her grandparents moved out of their big Southern Ranch style house, and the little girl and her family moved in, and her grandparents had a nice little spiffy, modern looking addition put right to the left of the Southern Ranch style home. And she was excited about that. It was a big change, and for a long time, everybody's minds were on that, on the change, and she started to realize she was going through puberty and things were happening. She started to have her period and have crushes on boys, and school started to make sense. She started to think abstractly and be like, oh, this is chemistry. Like, I could actually learn about this someday. Whoa, astronomy. Astronomy is dope. Like, she wouldn't have ever said it in those words, but yeah. And just growing up and going through those stages of adolescence, it was insane and it was so cool. And then the rhythm came back. And she started to remember the fears that she'd had as a kid. Her dad and her mom continued again to fight, and their problems got worse. And she was so numbed to it and so used to it that no one ever told her it was a problem, and she didn't know who to talk to when she felt a little bit scared. Her parents always told her to keep the problems within the home and to not tell responsible adults outside of the home, to keep the problems within the home and make sure that it never leaked out, because that would be a disgrace to the family. And she believed that. She took that in, and she never told an adult. She never told her youth leaders at the church she went to. She never told one of the coaches at the soccer group she was a part of, no one at school. She never told anybody that her parents were having problems and that they took their anger out on the kids. She was sort of scared. Just sort of. She didn't know what to do because her parents had made it feel it was normal. And then finally, the older siblings went off to college and they started to realize that's a problem back home. That shouldn't be happening. And so they called in CPS, Child Protective Services, and they told them what had happened, and the stories just got worse as it went on, and finally CPS decided to investigate. But when they called the family in for a big meeting / checkup thing, the girl was too scared to tell them what was actually going on. And as she grew older and thought about it, she wished that was the moment that she should have said something. And her older siblings encouraged her to be brave and to not fear what her parents would do to her if they found out that she had told CPS what was really going on in the home. I'm sorry, guys. I'll be okay. But she just never told CPS. And even though there were people that suspected it, they feared, even adults feared her father too much to come in and say, this is a problem. These are things that are happening that shouldn't be happening. So, in the end, bottom line is, this isn't really just a story. It is a story, because stories are powerful and they should be shared like this. But it's also truth, and it's also history, and it's my history, and it's the history of a ton of people all throughout the world. And this is something that can be stopped. This is something that can be helped. It's something I'm still dealing with. I still have major problems with it. And I know I'm smiling today and I look like I've come to own my own person. In fact, I've completely changed the way I look. I used to look like an old grandma. And I'm in college now, and I'm learning about the criminal justice system and all these things. But I'm still scared of my dad. And I'm still scared of what my mom would say to me if she knew the way I think about how they treat my siblings. I'm scared. I'm terrified. And this is a fear that we need to conquer. So, bottom line, this video is simply to raise awareness, nothing else. And I'm getting help, and my family is going to start getting help. So, hopefully that story has a happy ending. But, for all the stories out there that don't have happy endings yet, what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit and think about it? Are you going to listen to the story? Are you going to smile with me when I smile and rejoice over the happy endings that might happen? Or are you actually going to go out and help facilitate? Please, please think deeply about this and realize that domestic abuse is serious and it affects the futures of your friends and your friends' kids. And generations from now, it'll still be happening, but we can help. Thanks, guys.